Invasion of the Saucermen. And this piece has a lot of history. It has a lot of movie history and a lot of Distortions history. We actually were able to manufacture this. We got the licensing, which now it's in the public domain. It's been long enough, it's in the public domain. But back then we had to license it, and we had the license for a couple of years and produce these as Distortions. But I think, well, if you go to the 30s and 40s, Frankenstein, it just doesn't get any better than that. To this day, Frankenstein is such a, it's actually Frankenstein's monster, but it's such an incredible character. And then it got upseated, and really kind of all monsters, in the late 70s by Alien, the Giger's Alien, 20th Century Fox. And that, I don't think's been beat yet. Now, I don't want to get in any fistfights over this stuff. This is my opinion. But between Frankenstein and the Alien is this guy. And in my opinion, this is one of the greatest movie monsters of all time. This character was created by Paul Blaisdell, and Paul was a phenomenal artist, and he was doing amazing stuff like this, incredibly creative stuff, before anybody knew nothing about how to make this stuff. And so, you know, he's like, well, he gets the idea. I don't know where they came up with the idea, maybe from a comic book or something. I can't think of a big-headed alien like this before, but wherever that design came from. So we were able to send some people to his widow's house. Paul had died, and up in the attic were the molds for this. Now, we were able to get were the ear molds, the head molds, and the face came from the actual piece that was used for close-ups. There's a scene where the alien was shot, and so it was open in the back of the head, and so the person that was manipulating him could move the eyes and move his mouth and things. And so we were able to get that. So this is all authentic. We had to put different eyes in because the eyes were actually styrofoam, believe it or not. Now, I don't know if they were all styrofoam, but they were able to, in the head, to manipulate. It had a fiberglass backing. It was really a remarkable piece for that era. And so we took the head and stuck the ears on, and we put the actual piece. Maybe I made a mold off it first. I'm not sure. Probably not. And just got it all together somehow. Filled in the back because that was open. And I was able to make a piece off of all authentic stuff. Now, the one thing that's missing was the veins. And he had very cleverly used a cake decorator, one of the old-fashioned canvas things that you'd roll up and you'd squeeze the frosting out of. And he did that because he just wanted to sculpt it once, but he didn't want them all to look the same. If they all had the same veins, it would give the gag away. So he actually made these veins with thick latex in a cake decorator. And so I had to do it. I did it with clay. And so those veins are what I did way back in the 80s. Now, these are veins that were actually in there, but he had done that. And so we had all that, and we made it, sold it for a couple of years. And then the license was up, and all the molds have disappeared over the years, and foam masters, all that was gone. And so maybe 5 years ago or so, I see a picture of Tom Savini, and here is an unpainted saucerman in the background. He was standing in front of a bunch of stuff. I call him up and said, "Tom, where in the world did you get this?" And he goes, "I don't know. You probably gave it to me." And I probably did when he was out sometime in the 80s or 90s. And because we didn't have the license, so we couldn't sell them anymore. And so I well, would you be willing to sell this? And he's like, "Sure. What, you want to trade for something?" And so I said, "Yeah, let me see what I got, and I'll throw some stuff at you." Well, he could tell by my agitation that he had something. And so he calls up Jordu. And it's like, "Hey, Jordu, what would you give me for him?" And Jordu apparently came up with something better than what I had come up. I was in the middle of negotiating. If he'd said that's not good enough, well, how about 3, whatever. So it was gone. And so I talked to Jordu. Jordu said, I'll let you borrow. We'll make a mold off it and blah, blah, blah. So we just didn't get it done for years. And fast forward to about a year ago, I guess, I started talking to him about it again. And so he agreed to sell us the Saucerman, and we were going to have him make a mold off it and then do in silicone and do a clay pour to clean it all up. And then I thought, as he was already in process, he was already doing it, and it would have been cleaner. But what I realized is but it's further away from the original. This is as close as we could get and you can get. And then I'm like, oh, that's not good. So I canceled that project, and even though he's well into it, and said, no, just send me back the Foam Master. And so it has its foibles, but it's the way it was. And to give you an idea of the perspective of why that was so wrong, Willie Nelson has a guitar he's used since, I don't know, maybe the 60s or 70s. It's got a hole in it from him strumming. And so that would be like buying that guitar and filling the hole up with some wood filler and sanding it and painting it all nice. You just don't do that. So I was kind of surprised that I was thinking that way. Well, anyway, so this is it. This is the mask that we were producing back in the 80s, early 80s. And it's, to me, just one of the coolest movie monsters out there. It's a little more expensive than some of the things we make. It's difficult to produce, and we've got a lot of skin in this one to bring it back to market. But for the collectors and things, there's just few monsters at this level. If you were growing up any time from the 50s up till today, you have seen this monster. And I, of course, saw it as a kid and loved it. And just the imagery of this monster is so cool. It just, I don't know, Paul just nailed it. He was incredibly creative. Now, I don't know if he drew it or he created this. I think this was his creation, but I don't know that for sure. But he certainly sculpted it, and back when nobody knew nothing, there were no books telling you how to do this stuff. It was just him figuring it out back in the day when it wasn't easy. And so we did have Jordu come out, and he sculpted the hands, and he sculpted these little bib pieces and wrist pieces. And now here's the thing. I was a little concerned about the color, because when we got the original in, it was this kind of color, it's an orangey flesh. And I'm like, well, I wonder if the gloss, because it was kind of glossy and things, I wonder if that yellowed, or the paint yellowed over time or aged and kind of made it that orangey color, and maybe it was supposed to be flesh. Well, then I recently looked, and sure enough, there's some color pictures that exist. The film was black and white, so there's no clue there. But the color pictures exist of it with the actor standing next to him, and it is this orangey flesh. And so this was the color we produced it as, and this is the color in the film. However, all the publicity posters and advertising show it this way. And I thought, you know what? I just want to do it green, because there's nothing more classic than little green men. And this was, maybe that term came from this monster. I don't know for sure about that, but little green men. So we did one that kind of matched the movie poster. And we're just thrilled with the way he turned out. It's just so retro and such a cool monster. And I don't know, there's just really nothing quite like the invasion of the Saucerman. So Marcia, tell us the tale about Kirk Hammett.
Well, back in the 80s, Kirk Hammett got a hold of us and was looking for a Saucerman. which we had been making, but we weren't making at the time. However, one of our kids, Adam, had one because he was a big horror fan and was collecting them. So
well,
anyway,
he got all sorts of cool stuff because
yeah.
every birthday, Christmas and stuff, that's what he wanted. So he got that.
So anyway, asked Adam, hey, you want to sell your mask? And Adam was like, no, I don't want to. I'm going to keep it. So there you go.
Well, and it wasn't just the money. I mean, it was $500 back in the 80s for a kid. And so, and the kid, by the way, is running the camera here. But anyway, he didn't, and not only that was it the cash, but it was backstage passes. He's like, we're going to be in Denver. You can bring it to the concert. I'll bring it backstage. And so we thought, well, that's cool, and they were quite a thing. But at the time, he was really young. I don't know how old, but I mean, they were playing big stadiums by then, but they were still very young. So he was trying to convince you that he could afford it and he was legit and the band was big, and I remember that part.
Well, anyway, Adam was in grade school, so
yeah,
yeah.
that's a while ago.
He didn't want to part with the mask.